What's up, guys? Here with you, FC Wonder Kid, episode 156. Here with my guy, Bretson. How are you?
I am totally unfocused because I can't tell you how exciting that Champions League week was, that Tuesday and Wednesday. And then fast forward and you've got, actually, I mean, it is a Premier League race that's coming down to the wire, but obviously
True.
Manchester City is making it their own. But my goodness, we have nominees to talk about. I can't believe it's already the end of the season. We've got Copa America, Euro news. We've got promotions. We've got relegations. My goodness, we could be here forever, but we don't have forever. So let's do it right now. Let's dive in, Alex. How would you like to start today, sir?
Oh, yes, Bretson. You mentioned first Real Madrid. It's being a bold week, and I got to agree. Predictions time in the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League. But make sure to let us know what are your predictions down below, because it's very hard to guess. In my opinion, the Europa League and the Conference League. People say Leverkusen's easy, but we will let you know in this video why is it not so easy as it seems. But Real Madrid did what they always do in the Bernabeu, 2-1 lead, and if I agreed with people that decision of Bayern Munich was a bit, I don't want to say shameful, but a bit, you put your eyebrow up, not for the best reasons. The opposite of what Carlo Ancelotti would. But it's, I still think Real Madrid would win that game, even though there was a decision that would extend the game to 2-2 and would be wonderful in the Bernabeu. But it was very polemic.
It was, and while I agree with you that I think Real Madrid would have won, we'll never know, and that's because that was very, very much a mistake. It was a mistake, and that really does that's gotta sting. It really does have to sting. But then again, that's the game. It's happened before. I'm still licking the wounds from the 2002 World Cup and Torsten Fring's hand. And they didn't even have VAR back then. But listen, like, that's what VAR is for. I understand that there's, like, protocol, and because when the whistle, there should be something that supersedes that. But anyway, that's not the focal point of the game. That game was exciting. Real Madrid fought, and got it done. And the only thing I'm angry about, before we even talk about the game, is Carlo Ancelotti already coming out and likely, I think he's already named, correct me if I'm wrong, Thibaut Courtois as the starter for the final. And I just feel so bad for Andre Lunin, who has busted his butt for them to get them there. And it's like, ride that pony, man. Come on, ride him off into the sunset. Let him get this done, but I understand there's a title at hand. But what do you think about that?
Casillas even agrees with you, and he said, I would start Lunin in that game in the final. But you mentioned Carlo Ancelotti and all this. The greatness of Carlo Ancelotti was fully shown this season in football. Real Madrid, Courtois injured, Kepa injured. Third keeper Lunin had to step up, and he surely did. Alaba, Eder Militao injured. No prime Benzema that won a Ballon d'Or. Joselu step up too. So there were so many variables this season with Real Madrid that I have to admire what they've done. And their record in La Liga right now, Real Madrid's 35 games, 28 wins, 6 draws, 1 loss, and only 22 goals suffered. We saw greatness this season with Real Madrid, and the Galacticos mean business this summer. Mbappe is coming. Mbappe has announced that he's leaving PSG. Real Madrid Galacticos, they're finally gonna happen now. Hendrik, Mbappe, Lenny Yoro, Alphonso Davies. Bernabeu full announcing these stars, and we are all witnessing history in the making. And in 2005-26 too, Wirtz and Xabi Alonso are favorites to land too at Real Madrid. So scary scenes for any Barca fan, not for any Real Madrid fan. But I have another thing I want to really mention, Bretson, and I think you're going to agree with me. Vinicius Jr. will become the first Brazilian since Kaká to win a Ballon d'Or. He'll be the first since 2007 to do so. And to think that Neymar was much better of a player than we see Vinicius right now. Yes, it saddens me to think Neymar hasn't won, but Vini deserves this with the discipline and the talent that he's shown and consistency at Real Madrid. Vinicius will be that guy.
Well,
Do you agree?
Well, I'm gonna actually, I am gonna have to agree with you here, but I am gonna throw a little caveat in there. He's just blessed to be at the butt end of the Cristiano Ronaldo, Leo Messi win everything.
True.
Like territory. So that doesn't make him any less of a world-class baller. But we all know that Neymar would have a Ballon d'Or to his name if it weren't for those two individuals that we just mentioned. I do agree with you in some respects. I think it will come down to Copa America versus Euro success as well, with Bellingham. If Real Madrid lifts the trophy against an incredibly pesky Borussia Dortmund, but when it comes down to it, he is just a phenomenal baller that doesn't get enough credit right now, even though we talk about him quite frequently. Vinicius Jr. just gets it done, and he gets it done when the pressure is on. And everybody knows. Everybody knows it. Even the haters know it, and they're just afraid to admit it to themselves.
Vinicius Jr. destroyed Kimmich in that game against Bayern Munich. Rivaldo stated, I would say right now, Vini Jr. is ahead of Mbappe. Jude Bellingham today said the best player in the world is Vini Jr. He stated that, Jude Bellingham. So those two players, you get the sense that Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., and Kylian Mbappe coming to Real Madrid next season at Real Madrid, they're going to be dominating Ballon d'Or talks in the next 5 to 10 years. Unreal. Or,
and hear me out, Kylian Mbappe's personality, Kylian Mbappe is Kylian Mbappe, and it winds up, I don't know, disrupting the locker room. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying what I actually think is going to happen, but there are a fair amount of people that think Real Madrid as a team, team entity, right, would be better off without Kylian Mbappe. And just simply because of how much attention a Kylian Mbappe commands, which you could argue is a good thing because it takes pressure off of other players.
True.
But you could also argue it's a bad thing because then it becomes the focal point and they're all under an even bigger microscope somehow because Real Madrid has, So there's a lot. I'd love to know what people think about that because there's a nagging part of me that says I kind of like Kylian Mbappe less Real Madrid because it feels a little bit like he's Harry Kaning in some respects, except Harry Kane is still looking for a trophy, but we know what trophy Kylian Mbappe is after, right? We know what he's after. Well, two. There's a personal one, Ballon d'Or, and then there is obviously the elusive Champions League, whereas Harry Kane is still looking for any trophy. But very big difference there, but that's kind of what it feels like. And he's doing the right things. He's going to take a haircut. Not actually a haircut. He doesn't need one, but he's going to take a cut in compensation, and he's going to join what should be, let's be honest, the best team on the field. What should be another Champions League winning year for the Real Madrid. Real Madrid. So
Mbappe,
crazy, man.
This is an interesting thing because Mbappe, before signing the extension with PSG, Mbappe didn't need Real Madrid more than Real Madrid needed Mbappe. So I feel at this stage, Real Madrid don't need Mbappe as much as Mbappe needs Real Madrid. If he's going to win the Ballon d'Or, if he's going to win the Champions League consistently, he has to be in Madrid with the Galacticos next to Jude, next to Vini, or next to Hendrik too, because those are the players that will be leading Ballon d'Or contention. Hendrik will be 22 and Mbappe is 30. Look at the experience that this kid is going to have. It's mad. And another detail, because FC Wonderkid fans deserve the scoop, the details of why Real Madrid is a Champions League winning team. Antonio Pintos, their conditioning coach. Antonio Pintos, it's his 9th UCL final in his career. With Juve in 96, 97, 98. With Monaco in 2004. And with Real Madrid since Zidane has brought him in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2022, and now in 2024. Where Antonio Pintos goes, success comes with him. So it's a very important variable in today's game, in my view. Okay?
And explain to me why Todd Bowley is not calling him up and offering him the world right now? Explain that to me somehow. I mean, I know he's going to collect a Messinho. He's going to collect another, couple players. You need a conditioning coach, sir. You need a conditioning coach. That's what you need. You need a physio.
Good drop. Good name drop there with Messinho. Very good name drop there. And another player that deserves a special congratulations, in my view, is Rudiger. Tony Rudiger has been one of the best center backs in the world this season. I said last season Ronaldo Araújo was one of the top center backs in the world, but I have no doubt from what I've seen, Rudiger has outperformed every center back at Barcelona this season. He's been unreal on top of Erling Haaland, on top of everyone that is going against the Champions League ambition of Real Madrid. So El Loco, he says El Loco, he says it himself. I'm not calling him crazy. So Rudiger, he's the character of that team, and the role he's played has been instrumental. When we said of injuries like Eder Militão, of Alaba, he played with Nacho, Rudiger next to him. He played with Tchouaméni, Rudiger.
Rudiger just needs to be a little more careful with his boss. I don't know if you saw that video of him celebrating them going to the Champions League final with Carlo Ancelotti. It's like, dude, this guy might break. You're shaking him. He's not a rag doll. Chill out, El Loco. But yeah, you can't call a crazy man crazy. He's got that glint in his eye. And we'll see if he can do something special with Germany this summer, too, because they're going to need a little crazy. They're going to need a little crazy if they're going to do something beyond just Wirtz and Havertz and all these players that are rounding into form at the exact right time.
First player to reach 7 Champions League finals in this format, this new era of the Champions League. And Arda Güler's learning with all this. 3 goals in his last 3 starts for Real Madrid. So a lot of positives. But who are they facing? We didn't mention in all this who they're facing. Dortmund, that is making history too. After they sell Erling Haaland and they sell Jude Bellingham 2 consecutive seasons, now as a consequence, they're in the Champions League final with 2 lone players that showed great decision making in the January transfer market. Jadon Sancho and Ian Maatsen. How doesn't United retain a player like Sancho when they have Anthony? That's a whole other conversation. But Dortmund, they're doing good decisions.
They are. Here's my mea culpa. I mean, they're terrible in the Bundesliga. Let's
never picked them.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right. But Aiden Terzic, originally it was Gio Reyna. It was Pulisic before that. It was some other. I've had some run-ins with just him as a man manager beyond that. But there is no doubt that when they needed to step up, when they needed to play well, when they needed to scrape out wins, when they needed to make things incredibly interesting, especially that win against Atleti, they did so. They did so. And he's got a real team right now. It's not one individual. It's also very feels very counter Borussia Dortmund. But hey, they're in the Champions League final. And I guess, there is that photo that's circulating around where Aiden Terzic, the last time they were in the Champions League final, he was in the stands. He was in the stands as a fan watching. And now to fast forward, what is it, like 11, 12 years later?
11.
And here they are. And at the same time watching their longtime nemesis, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, Bayern, go trophyless for the first time in 14 years. And he's on the other side, finishing 5th in the Bundesliga and going to Wembley. One game. It's one game. They can win it. They
one game away for Marco Reus to win that Champions League. I don't believe it will happen. Oh, yes, true, PSG. Mbappe didn't show too much of clutchness for PSG. Nope. That's a whole other conversation. But you mentioned it. Harry Kane in his first season for Bayern Munich. Trophyless in a team that wins trophies. For more than a decade, they've been doing that nonstop. DFB Pokal, no. Super Cup, no. Champions League, no. Wow. This is, I don't want to say embarrassing because he performed big time, but it's no coincidence that the style of play is heavy reliance on your creativity. There's a lot of points we can do on that, but Harry Kane, come on, you got to react better, and he has a bit of fault. For people that say he's no fault, Harry Kane has a style of play and a way of playing he takes a lot of ball and creativity from an offensive midfielder. That is clearly shown. Okay, so let's see. Let's see long term if he can win, because Leverkusen are favorites next season.
Yeah, they are. And just seeing little things happening here, right? Manuel Neuer, right? Come on. Guy's a legend, all-time legend,
But
one of the best goalkeepers of all time.
The curve.
It's just brutal. I mean, brutal to see something like that happen in such a momentous time.
For the listeners, in that goal that Manuel Neuer, he didn't look too good. That Vini, he shoots the ball, it hits the floor. Neuer tries to grab the ball, he can't, and then Joselu hits it. If you notice in that goal, Joselu doesn't stop 1 second in the Manuel Neuer goal with the mistake. If Joselu had just hesitated 1 second, that goal wouldn't have happened. So I give big credit to Joselu and having that belief. And who I think wins that game is Ancelotti with the substitutions. Thomas Tuchel lost when he leaves Harry Kane on the bench. That could never happen. You can never let Real Madrid get comfortable towards attack, because it's inevitable with Ballon d'Or contenders like Vini Jr. in that game.
I mean, you can send Joselu all over the world, but you can't take the Fabrica out of him, right? And in the end, that's what came through. I mean, you run through it all times. If he even thought about who was the goalkeeper, that would have been enough of a point of hesitation, I know, for me, to not really go after any sort of rebound, because you're like, it's Manuel Neuer. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But that's not how he's built. And let's be honest. Here's the cliche joke. This is a man that has done it on a wet, cold, windy night. Tuesday night or whatever it is at the Britannia in Stoke City. And Joselu, there he is. I mean, just seeing his emotion after the game, seeing him processing all this, you can't not love that. Come on. 88th minute equalizer, a 92nd minute match winner, regardless of what happened beyond that with the officiating. That story in and of itself warms my heart. And I know we don't want to see another Real Madrid win if you want parity. But come on, they continue to do this all the time.
It's true.
To the point where there are conspiracy theories like abound, thinking that Real Madrid is, I don't know, the club of, I'm not going to bring religion into this in any way, shape, or form themselves, but like it is an ingrained. It's a culture that is ingrained to just never stop, never end. It was Rodrigo before him, and how many countless things that we can name, and that's what made it so special.
It's true, and it's the locker room. There's a special environment, and it's this mix of experience with heritage, with talent. There's always a respect towards that badge. Carlo Ancelotti knows how to manage a locker room like this full of stars, and there's this belief that they got to deliver and beat the previous people that were in that Real Madrid jersey. So I think it's phenomenal for sure. And the last player I want to mention in this Champions League talk, it's Mats Hummels. Mats Hummels is one of the best center backs in his generation, for sure, in my point of view. He's madly underrated because he's not as talked as he should be, and he was the man of the match in both legs against PSG. So many quality tackles against Kylian Mbappe. Mats Hummels, those were master classes. And look, I'm Nagelsmann, and I'm thinking, Rudiger and Mats Hummels. But Schlotterbeck, he's doing quite a good job too. But there's a real talk for that too, because Schlotterbeck and Mats Hummels have been one of the most underrated center-back duos in the world of football. They would be talked a lot more if they played in the Premier League, for sure. So Mats Hummels, football heritage, just like Marco Reus, just like Emre Can, just like a lot of players in this team of Dortmund.
And with Mats Hummels, that's exactly who you want. I mean, imagine if that was like Dan Axel Zagadou, or one of the other center backs that they've had in the past few years, when Dortmund unfortunately have given up control of the Bundesliga and things like that. Now, Akanji, we all knew when he was at Dortmund, he did have injury issues, and somehow those miraculously disappeared when he went to Manchester City. But yeah, I mean, Mats Hummels is exactly who you want in that Champions League semifinal. It's muscle memory for the guy, whether it's with Germany, whether it's with Bayern previous. I mean, the guy has been there before and has done it. But my last statement here is that it wasn't, obviously it was Mats Hummels. It obviously was Nico Schlotterbeck. It was also Gregor Kobel, in my opinion. But PSG, 44 shots, 9 shots on goal. They had 5 XG over 2 games. I know that statistic doesn't mean a lot to everybody, but they had 0 goals to show for it. They hit the woodwork 6 times. 6 times. So there is a bit of fortune on both sides, I guess. Fortune favors the bold, right? On Real Madrid and Dortmund, it just seemed like it was destined. But they took their chances early on. They've got massive, I guess you could say, just massive contributions from players that otherwise you would not expected to. And there you are. A former fan, a guy that has been the assistant coach. He's been the technical director. He's been the head coach. Now he's taking Borussia Dortmund to Wembley to face Real Madrid in the final. And I wonder if there's anyone out there that thinks Dortmund's going to actually pull this out. They
could. They were in London in 2012.
Yeah,
that could happen. And Sancho, obviously, 3 appearances for Man United this season, and now in a Champions League final. And for sure, Southgate, he's going to call him up. Rashford ain't going to go, but Sancho, for sure, deserves to be there, okay? He was like, what? He broke a record for most dribbles by an Englishman in a Champions League semi-final? Or, equaled Messi? Or something like that? Something mad. That just shows
12.
12 dribbles.
Dribbles completed. Yeah.
Oh, my days.
And that was the most since Messi, I think, in 2006 or 2007, something like that. The most for an Englishman ever.
My prediction for the Champions League will be Real Madrid winning the 15th with a Vinicius Junior goal involvement. I think he's going to go really bold in this final to show people he's for sure a top 5 Ballon d'Or contender, if not a winner. I think he's going to go really bold in that sense. Or maybe a Jude Bellingham going against his former team. It's just poetic for these types of players to go crazy in London too. So
I'm going to throw a name out there. I'm going to say the difference is going to be Fede Valverde.
He was a difference in a final already.
Yep. And I'm going to say if the man knows how to do it, and he's also a massive part of this future.
With an assist of who?
Oh,
Vinicius Junior.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right. Of course.
That's what happened. So that will be really good. Let's see. Then let us know your predictions too down below on YouTube. Now, Europa League, Breton. It's not in London. It's in Dublin, this one. And the last final that was in Dublin in the Europa League was 2 Portuguese teams, Porto against Braga. This one is going to be a lot different. It's never losing against Atalanta, okay? This Bayer Leverkusen team doesn't seem like they know how to lose. And the way they're playing, Captain Xhaka, how they were losing 2-0, and Xabi Alonso and Xhaka both were pointing at their heads saying, don't lose control. He's the commander of Xabi Alonso on the pitch. Granit Xhaka, a man that hasn't lost since May 2023, playing for Arsenal. Mad.
But they left this one a little late. But they went for it, and you got to give them credit in that second leg. And it's now, 49 games beaten. First Euro final since 2001, 2002, when they were runner-ups in the Champions League.
It'll be 50.
I'll lose. But I think you could be right. But this is another thing. It's the fortune favors the bold, right? And you're at 12 different occasions this season, Alex. 12. They have had injury time. I'm just talking injury time now, not 80th minute and beyond. Injury time. Goals that have either equalized or won. And that's exactly what wound up happening here. And like the poetic thing about all of this, if it's poetic's probably not the right word, but the guy that scored the equalizer to wind up keeping the unbeaten streak alive was on loan from where?
Bayern Munich. Stanisic.
Bayern Munich. Yep. Josip Stanisic, who, by the way, has been phenomenal when called upon this season for Leverkusen. Obviously going into this, the biggest thing that they run up against is an Atalanta attack that when they are in form, which they are now, when they are high octane and they are locked in, they can bury Leverkusen in a hole big enough that they can't get out of.
I
right?
don't know.
And well, it's true, but like, yeah, okay, 3-4 zip is going to be a little bit tough, and at times Leverkusen does look pretty porous. I mean, you've seen it in this competition. You've seen it mostly in the Europa League,
Karabakh,
where we've seen, Karabakh, exactly, and Slavia Prague, I think it was, or maybe it was Sparta after that. But they sometimes let down. Do I think they will when it means the most? No, I don't think that they will. But Gasparini has them. And has had them for 10 plus years, punching well above their weight. This is probably not a final opponent that you actually want heading into this, because this is a team that it's their first European final. Atalanta. It's Gasparini has gotten them there. This is history, and Ademola Lookman was massive in that last game. That whole left side, Matteo Ruggeri. And they've got guys also that have been in similar situations before. So I'm telling you, man, I think this game is going to be a whole lot closer than people are expecting. While I do believe the Werkself are going to ultimately prevail, and Bayer Leverkusen does make it 50 or 51 or whatever it is at that point in time, I just think this is going to be so much closer than people give it credit for, and I hope it will.
This is a worthy European final between Leverkusen, never losing, and Atalanta. For sure. It's the first European final in Atalanta history in 116 years. Gasperini has been the manager for more than 10 years, and he's finished 5th or higher 6 times. 6 times. He's made Atalanta a team that when they go in the Champions League, it's not surprising anymore. Gasperini did this. Scamacca is now a striker that people say he should start for the Azzurri. They've got Scalvini. They've got Marterun. They've got Koop Miners. They've got Lukman. Players that were all developed by Gasperini. They clearly are his fingerprint. Charles de Ketelaere. There's so much talent in this team, and not forgetting they're in the Copa Italia final in all this too, fighting towards getting that Champions League pace too, playing against a Bologna. That's Bologna, another historic team this season. Okay, please check out the work that Thiago Motta has been doing. And yes, another detail that I think it's quite funny. It's the last loss of Xabi Alonso was against Jose Mourinho in May 2023 in Europa League semi-final. And that's why he is the special one, which Jose Mourinho called years ago, Xabi Alonso becoming a manager. So you love to see that he for sure learned in that game against Roma. But he for sure did, because he then beats him with Daniel De Rossi.
Well, there you go. I mean, but if you're going to bring that fun little tidbit up there, we got to repeat the other one for Granit Xhaka. The last time Granit Xhaka lost a game, he was still in an Arsenal shirt. So
it's true. Nottingham Forest was the team to beat them in the Premier League title race, which now is very different. They're not losing to those types of teams in the end stretch. And the last detail with Europa League, I think, just because he cried at the end of that game, and I actually felt sorry for him, was Aubameyang, you know. Because Aubameyang in this edition of Europa League was the top goal scorer with 10 goals. And he's the all-time leading goal scorer in Europa League history with 34 goals. A player that at given moments in his career was world-class. He was, okay? He was top 3 best African players in the world at the time. So Aubameyang, I love seeing you perform. And I hope to see you maybe going to the MLS and showing the American public how good you are, because I think he would match the culture. Aubameyang would be a very, very interesting player.
Well, Aubameyang would be a phenomenal addition to MLS. But we'll see if that happens. And you also have to feel for AS Roma. Ultimately, once they went up 2-0, I really thought they had solved Bayer Leverkusen. I thought the Daniel De Rossi
Wirtz on the bench press
kind of it was bold, dude. I don't really get why that happened. I don't get it. And then of course Wirtz has an influence the moment he comes in, and boom, the tide turns.
It's like Xabi Alonso putting Boniface and Wirtz in the 70th minute. It's like him saying, "I'm putting this unbeaten race in jeopardy But I know
Yeah.
the moment I put them, everything changes. That is
Yeah.
bold tactics. And Conference League,
But-
wanted to mention
Oh, yeah,
Conference League because Olympiacos will win the Conference League, okay? They beat Aston Villa. Well, nobody was expecting Unai Emery Aston Villa, someone that knows European competitions very well, and Olympiacos going to win the Conference League with Chiquinho, Daniel Podence, Gelson Martins, André Horta, João Carvalho, Ruben Vezo, and players that were in our league, Jovan Cabral, Fran Navarro, David Carmo, and Sotiris. So the Portuguese league should get points in UEFA, okay, if they win the Conference League. Come on, judge it.
They probably should. We can get a petition going or something. Maybe you guys can get a little credit. But the real star, obviously, for them has been Ayoub El Kabi,
For sure.
30-year-old kind of journeyman. I mean, he's been over to the Middle East. I think he was at Al Sadd. I could be wrong. Previous. But comes in, Moroccan striker. I'm not entirely sure if he was even on the World Cup roster when they made that crazy run, but I know he didn't necessarily play a part if he was. But he scored 5 goals. 5 goals over 2 legs against Aston Villa. Unai Emery's Aston Villa. And we know Unai Emery is trying to make them very clearly a 2-campaign or 3-campaign team instead of just one, but they met their match in Olympiacos. And a lot of that's because El Kabi's finishing was unreal. And he is the first African player in all European competition history to score 14 or more goals in a European campaign.
Wow.
Like, that's pretty insane for that to happen. So
in a Greek team
I don't know.
Yeah, that shows massive development by Olympiacos this season. And last thing, if you're listening until now, a Champions League detail that people will like. The best managers in the world right now are Italian managers and Spanish. Us Portuguese are going to catch them up with this new generation with Daniel Sousa, Ruben Amorim. But the Italian managers, we have 3 of them in European finals with Carlo Ancelotti, Gasperini, and Vincenzo Italiano. So these are bold times that we are seeing in football. But let us know, do you agree, disagree, what do you think of our predictions and what we talked about the Champions League? And like this video for more videos just like this talking about European competitions. Now, Breton, this is me seeing, I know, Premier League Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season, and Manager of the Season awards. A lot of nominees, we agree, we disagree, and we both agree to saying collective awards are much more important than the individuals in this sense. But seeing some of these nominees and snubs just gets me triggered, starting with Player of the Season in the Premier League, and Rodri, the engine of Man City, isn't nominated is a shambolic decision, especially when you see Alexander Isaac, when you see Declan Rice, a player with the same role, but not as good as Rodri. Arsenal fans, please, reality check. Rodri, Declan Rice. He's not as good right now. Come on! I got to start it with a negative here.
But it's a fair. It just makes me not even care, and that's, I know capitulation is not necessarily what they want people, or they always have to add somebody in there that is a whole lot more talked about against, simply because I guess it travels wider. Everybody wants to fire out or fire off that nasty comment that gets them to change these things. But come on, all these things need reworkings. There needs to be a better understanding as to how they get there. It needs to be voted on by all different subsets of people with different weightings. But yeah, I mean, Alexander Isak, great season, but come on. Young Player of the Season, having a 24-year-old. I know I'm going off the rails, and it makes me not care. That shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. But like, if you're gonna call it Young Player of the Season, I know it's 23 at the beginning of the season. That's
have Olise there.
Bollocks. Yeah, well,
have
exactly.
Olise there, right?
Have Olise, or I mean, at least let's see, Anthony Gordon. True. I mean, Anthony Gordon not being in there, that's completely ridiculous. But Alexander Isak's had a great season. Destiny Udogie, I mean,
He's
come on.
there. He's always there, Udogi.
I know it's a good season, but he shouldn't be there
Ah,
based
in
on
front
some of the
Olise.
others that he's keeping out.
But
And Kabi Mainu, I know he started 21 games for Manchester United. I know he's showing some things, but that's the biggest load of crap that I have ever seen compared to these other players that are not on there. I am not saying that Kabi Mainu will not win
I think
Young
he should
Player of
be
the
there.
Season in the future, but I just don't think over some of these other guys that we've just said, I mean, Conor Gallagher, in my opinion, should actually be there more so than Kabi Mainu. He started every game this season except for one, if I'm not mistaken.
By
Every
your
game this season-
arguments of saying Isaac 24, why is he there? I disagree. I think Maino, for what he's shown in this short period of time,
Yeah.
being England national team called up too, I think he deserves to be in the Young Player of the Season. But sticking with the player first, because I've got pointers too with the young player. With the Player of the Season of the Premier League, I think who's going to win it will be Phil Foden, the consistent player in this Man City team, next to Rodri, that should be also nominated. But Foden, you felt that he's the star in the middle of world-class players. We all seen Phil Foden as a potential top player in the world of football. Now it's a confirmation that he has to be in the same sentence as a Martin Odegaard, as a Bruno Fernandes, as a Kevin De Bruyne. Mention Phil Foden at the age of 23 and with so many titles won. And people say Erling Haaland doesn't deserve to be nominated for Premier League Player of the Season. That's crazy. That's crazy because Erling Haaland still is one of the best finishers in the world. World class doing just that. And 94 games, 88 goals for Man City. That's the reason why he's there. Immediate impact, winning a European treble in his first season. Mad.
Alex, it's his fault. I mean, he's the one that set the bar so dang high. If you compare it to last season, he technically has not had as good of a season. But when you compare it to the rest of everybody else in the Premier League, that's a little tough not to have him there. So I completely understand.
And I like
Haaland being there.
I like Ollie Watkins being there.
Exactly, because Ollie Watkins, Cole Palmer being there, I'm actually kind of okay with because if you look at the top, of the table in terms of goals and assists,
Exactly.
right? I mean, the dude has put himself there on a worse team than any of the others that are listed. So except for. Is Isak on Player of the Season as well?
He is in Player of the Season. He's Alexander-Isak is both nominated for Player of the Season and Young Player of the Season. That's why I really don't like the decision. Anthony Gordon should be in the Young Player of the Season, and even Bruno Guimarães, in terms of star. Like, he shares that stardom, but he's the first player since Alan Shearer to score 20 or more Premier League goals. I think that's one of the reasons why Isaac's there.
That is the reason why Isaac is there. You're absolutely right. I think that's more of a nod to Alan Shearer than it is to anything else. I mean, he is the Premier League goal scoring. No, I'm not saying he's the one that got Alexander-Isak on there. I'm sure Alan Shearer would actually say, yeah, I'd probably put somebody else there. But listen, can we just get rid of this whole Player of the Season? If you're Player of the Season, you're also nominated for Young Player of the Season. Let's make some room, please. Make some room. Isn't it better to be called nominated for Premier League Player of the Season than it is to be Young Player of the Season? Period. At least in my opinion. But
and Haaland won both. He won the Player of the Season and the Young Player of the Season. I think the Young Player of the Season should at least be different to share a bit more spotlight in another player. And yes, you mentioned Cole Palmer. Nor me or you disagree that Cole Palmer should be nominated for Player of the Season because Cole Palmer, 4 awards in 1 week, mate. Chelsea Player of the Year. He wins the Players Player of the Year. He wins the Premier League Player of the Month. And he wins the Premier League Goal of the Month. He's the first player since Eden Hazard to win the Premier League Player of the Month. That is since 2018, September. So Cole Palmer is breaking records nonstop. These ones individually, but 2 in terms of goals, assists, joint top in goal involvements, Cole Palmer and Ollie Watkins. Cole Palmer is a midfielder that just joined Chelsea. It's his first season at Chelsea. Signing of the season 2, 100%. Saving Poch's life.
Based off of their qualifications, Cole Palmer is my Young Player of the Year.
And Phil Foden, the player of the season?
Of the year. I I am going to have to actually agree with that.
Ah!
Because I do envision Manchester City lifting the trophy again.
Can both start for England, Breton?
Yeah. The only thing that I guess changes here, or does it change at all? If Arsenal lifts the trophy somehow this year, is it Declan Rice? Is it Martin Odegaard? I mean, it's probably not Martin Odegaard. It's probably Declan Rice. Correct?
Mm-hmm. If Arsenal wins the Premier League, Declan Rice could win the Player of the Season. Yes, Brett.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he almost has to, and which is funny because there was didn't you sort of say there? I mean, with Rodri's absence, it's almost bonkers that Declan Rice is there over Rodri.
I said it.
Which I 100% agree with. I do 100% agree with that. But then, yeah, if Declan Rice, if Arsenal somehow gets this done and they beat Manchester United, so they're back in front, and we've got this massive showdown. Mm-hmm. Although Spurs don't look like the Spurs of the beginning of the season, but we've got a big showdown coming up on Tuesday that'll tell us likely who is going to be Player of the Season. But I agree with you. Phil Foden deserves it. It just better not be one of those things where Phil Foden gets Player of the Season and Phil Foden also gets Young Player of the Season.
Cole
because
Palmer
technically
should definitely get one of those awards. Definitely.
I agree.
And I'd give it Young Player of the Season. For sure. We both agree in this statement.
Why do we agree so much?
Because I think it's pretty. I think the people at home will agree with us too. Comment down below. We will answer and share those statements. And Virgil van Dijk, I like to see Virgil van Dijk nominated for Player of the Season because yes, Liverpool didn't achieve the Premier League, the Europa League awards that were achievable. But Virgil van Dijk will still be perceived as one of the best center backs ever in Premier League history. And this season, he was top, and very in a lot of moments for Liverpool. So I liked seeing Virgil van Dijk in the nominees because I think he had a good season.
Still remember a time. I remember a conversation, probably not an argument per se, but I still remember a time when we were all obviously incredibly worried about whether or not he could get back to the Virgil van Dijk of old.
Oh yeah, but he's leaving.
And this season was a big,
I think he will
screw
leave.
You guys.
I think Virgil van Dijk being nominated for Player of the Season, there's a real chance that Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah will not be at Liverpool next season. Jurgen Klopp will for sure not be there. We will have Michael Edwards, CEO, Richard Hughes, Sporting Director, Julian Ward, Technical Director, Pedro Marques, they stole from Benfica, Director of Football Development, and Arne Slot, new head coach. This is a lot of changes, and Virgil van Dijk, he could be the best center back in a Juve team. He could be a best center back in another league, having a new experience. So Liverpool fans, do not be surprised if that decision happens, okay? There's a real chance that that's the case. And players with 50-plus goal contributions this season, Cole Palmer, Harry Kane, Erling Haaland, Mbappe, Victor Gyökeres. Really wanted to say Victor Gyökeres, but it's interesting to see that we have Cole Palmer and Erling Haaland in this convo, two players in the Premier League. And I've got here something I wanted to ask you. Yes, we don't think Erling Haaland is going to win one of these awards, Player of the Season and Young Player. But Erling Haaland will be in the Premier League next season, and I wanted to ask you if one of these players you believe next season can be ahead of Erling Haaland in the top goal scorer. Okay, Bretson, I'm going to say names, and you say if you think one of these players can surpass Erling Haaland in goals next season in the Premier League, all right?
Yep, ready.
Can these players surpass Erling Haaland in goals next season in the Prem? So, Rasmus Winter Højlund.
No.
Alexander Isaac.
It depends on Newcastle's summer. But no.
Dusan Vlahovic, if he goes to the Prem.
Streaky. No.
Šesko, if he goes to the Prem.
Dude could turn into a unit, that's for sure. But it would take a whole nother step from where he's at currently. So I still say no. I mean, Haaland's just the...
And my last answer
he's the guy.
Is Gyökeres. Yeah. Could Gyökeres equal Erling Haaland in goals or surpass in the Premier League with Arsenal?
That's the setup, everybody. There it is. Yeah, it depends. It depends on who he signs with. It really does. It depends on who he signs with. Do I think he's good enough to turn into a poacher meets target man meets all things striker type of situation for Liverpool or Arsenal?
He was the missing piece of
Yeah,
Sporting, so he
I
could
would
be.
say it's him or Isak. Him or Isak in the Premier League would have the best shot at going after Haaland. And let's be honest, Isak's a whole lot closer this season to Haaland than I think anybody expected. So is Cole Palmer. So are a few others. So I do think this was a down year for Haaland, and that's just bonkers to say. That's totally bonkers to say because he's still winning the Golden Boot, and he's still scoring goals for fun. But he is a specialist. He is a specialist when it comes to this stuff. So
will always be the top goal scorer in the Premier League. I like it. And let us know if you think anyone in the world of football could surpass in that scenario next season, okay? But we didn't mention manager of the year. And look, manager of the year in the Premier League has to be, in my opinion, Pep Guardiola, okay? Pep Guardiola will be the first manager winning 4 Premier League titles in a season. The record is 7 seasons at Man City, 6 Premier League titles if he wins it, and once in second place in 2019-2020. Greatness has been witnessed with everyone that has seen the Premier League, and no doubts in my mind, if Guardiola would have won the European treble back to back, come on, that would be a drop the mic moment. But Man City doesn't win the European treble back to back because Real Madrid exists. If Real Madrid, the Galacticos didn't happen, I for sure think that will be the case. And it's mad. This is one of the greatest teams we've seen ever in the Premier League. This is an era of dominance of Pep Guardiola. De Bruyne, Rodri, Haaland now, Foden. So many world-class players in all this. And Ruben Dias that's won the Premier League every season he's been the center back at the back. Leader at the back.
Unreal. Unreal. But part of me wishes they broke this Manager of the Season award up. Because Manager of the Season for me really does feel like you're taking less resources and you're making them better, right? Or you're making them better with less resources, or you're really, and nobody is saying Pep Guardiola is not doing that, but he obviously has started with a whole lot more than some of these other guys. And that's why, I'm glad Andoni Areola gets a shot with Bournemouth. I'm glad Unai Emery, I think if you're going off of those qualities, off of where Aston Villa came from, where they are now, who they had previously as the boss, where they were in the table, it's not quite Xabi Alonso type craziness, but dude, we were talking about Villa at some point this season as playing ball well enough that could keep them in the top 2, top 3, and they're not too far. They're 4th.
Ferguson called it.
They've done phenomenally well. Yeah. The only other guy I would add in there right now, I think, has had too small of a sample size for us to put him in there. But my goodness, Oliver Glasner for Crystal Palace.
Genius.
He is turning. I mean, Olise and Eze are both healthy. They're both happy. They're both productive. They're both playing scintillating football. He's turned Jean-Philippe Mateta into one of the best target strikers in the league. He's got Adam Wharton already put right in there. Chris Richards, he's turned into a phenomenal center back at the moment.
Playing good.
Will Hughes, he turned Nathaniel Klein from a relic, from a fossil sitting on the sideline into an actual center back for a little while.
Captain Henderson?
That wasn't. Yeah. Joachim Anderson actually deserves a shout out as one of the more improved center backs in the season. And I'm going to say this again. I know there's a. If you look back over the many years that we've been doing this, Alex, at one point, I think I lamented to you, why can't some of these other London clubs just put it together? I mean, Crystal Palace, to me, especially on the wings of the Ted Lasso phenomenon, right? Them having AFC Richmond and all that stuff, and them using the grounds in that area and whatever. I just don't see Crystal Palace. At some point, you get the right person, you get the right backers, or you get a more robust ownership group. It just feels a little bit like a sleeping giant. But they always shoot themselves in the foot with terrible management decisions. The many years dragged on with Wilfred Zaha, right? These are things that if they can exercise those demons and they get the right management crew in there, and they start making decisions like what has led to this form recently to end this season, I would love to see a Crystal Palace up in the top 7 top 8 routinely.
I
right?
think they'll be
Start
fighting for
there.
top 8 next season, Breton, with this Oliver
You
Glasner.
think so? I would love it.
The
I would love
style of play that I'm witnessing, I can say to the listeners, I've watched four 90-minute matches of Oliver Glasner with Crystal Palace, and they're playing different style of football.
They are.
Not what they're doing on ball, what they're doing off ball. That's what's surprising to me. And this Oliver Glasner Crystal Palace, they've beaten Liverpool, they've beaten West Ham, they've beaten Newcastle, they've beaten Man United, and they beat now in the Molineux Wolves, a tough team at home, a team that needs points. So that's in their last 6 matches, 5 wins, 1 draw, 16 goals scored, an average of 2 goals per game, with a trio going very bold up forwards. Olise, Eze, and Mateta. Olise, with this recent form, Olise for sure should be in the Young Player of the Season in the Premier League, and Olise should go to Euro 2024. He's got the level towards being there, and he will be a top signing for Man United or Arsenal. If Arsenal sign Olise, Douglas Luiz, and a Victor Gyökeres in the summer transfer window, that's Arteta saying, I'm not just going to be fighting for Premier League titles. I'm fighting for Champions League too. So I'm looking at this summer excited as hell, as you can see. And Adam Wharton, I forgot to say in all this. Why not Adam Wharton going to England in the next 6 months? He should. I'm not gonna say Euro 2020. I'm not gonna say Adam Wharton has to go to Euro 2024. But in terms of football ability, he's been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League since Oliver Glasner has arrived. The intensity in duels defensively, the involvement he shows in terms of passes, he is ahead of his age, and I expect Adam Wharton to be ahead of Jordan Henderson, Calvin Phillips in the England call-up one day. He's showing the level at Crystal Palace. Stay another season too. I already see news saying,
I hope so.
Oh, Palace accepts a big bid from a top club in the top 6. I'm for sure think the top 6 want him. Bayern, I'm for sure Bayern wants them. But stay another season at Palace and make history, because it's very possible. Very possible.
Well, it is, and we do need to remember, Glasner had Eintracht Frankfurt running pretty hot before
final,
then. I think everybody's excitement got too high at Frankfurt. He needed the backing. He didn't necessarily get the backing after taking them out of the UCL group stage, if I'm not mistaken, and they lost in the round of 16 to Napoli. I believe it was Napoli. And he did that with a team, that has obviously struggled this season. But at the same time, he's come in and very clearly that same self-belief that he gave all those Eintracht Frankfurt players has transferred over to Crystal Palace. They feel like they're just playing freely. But I am going to say, with the Euros, I think the best thing between the Euros and the Copa America, and I hope all managers do this with their extra 3 spots, but they have been given 3 extra spots on the roster to bring people along. And obviously, we're biased here at FC Wonder Kid. I would like them to use that on guys like an Adam Wharton that could get game time, but at the same time, at least at bare minimum, he's along for the experience, the ride. But Gordon, Adam Wharton would get game time if he went. But I'm looking at
for sure.
In the U.S. and the Copa America, seeing some guys that maybe have some dual nationality things. But yeah, that extra 3 is going to hopefully provide some pretty cool experiences for some Wonder Kids that might otherwise get left out, because every manager has their favorites. Let's be honest.
It's very true. And the manager of the season in the Premier League, so we both agree Pep Guardiola is going to win it. A manager that his last Manager of the Month award was in 2021, December of 2021. So the manager doesn't win the Manager of the Month is going to win the Manager of the Season. Sean Dyche, shout out to him, that won the April Manager of the Month, deserving too.
Everton,
let us know, do you agree, do you disagree with our statements in terms of all these nominations in the Premier League? And yes, you mentioned it, Breton. Copa America time is gonna happen. Very soon we're gonna be dropping a ton of videos, including you in Portugal. We're gonna be going very bold in these competitions. But Copa America and Euro 2024 is happening. But we had to talk about Copa America right now, because the Brazil team has been announced, and I'm like seeing Malik Tillman Hughes just signed for PSV. I'm seeing that Weston McKennie maybe he's not going to stay at Juve. It's going to be a massive Copa America for Brazil, for the U.S. men's national team, for Argentina with Messi. So many things we got to talk. So, Breton, how are you feeling with this? You mentioned with the roster, 26 players. Very good news.
After that Manchester United game and several games previous to that, that Arsenal game, I should say, I could tell you I now understand the reason why Casemiro is not on the Brazilian side. But no, no Richarlison, no Neymar, no Casemiro. I mean, these are big decisions. These are big decisions.
Dorival.
Not as What? Dorival,
Dorival went bold, mate, because it's Casemiro, the leader and captain of this team. It's Anthony. It's Richarlison injury. Gabriel Jesus, João Pedro, Carlos Augusto, Mateus Cunha, Bremer, and obviously the big elephant in the room. Injured is true, Neymar. Neymar will not be going to Copa America. But the door's not closed for all these players. They could return in the future. But any Arsenal fans, because you Arsenal fans, they keep chasing us with FC Wonderkid. We like Arsenal, okay, and the Wonder Kids. But any person that says Gabriel Jesus should be selected for Brazil, they don't know ball and they don't watch Brazil. Because Gabriel Jesus, in his last 5 years in this Brazil national team, has only scored once, and it wasn't a friendly. So Evan Nilsson of Porto deserves 100% much more to be called up than Gabriel Jesus and Vitor Roque that wasn't called up too. Hendrik deserves that.
Oh. He does, but my goodness, the Vitor Roque thing, heartbreaking. I would not have expected that he goes over there, he's assessed by Xavi, and Xavi's like, yeah, he's not a part of our team. Come on. Like, there's no way you thought that.
No, I didn't. In
any way, shape, or
form.
And
I'm worried for Vitor Roque because Lewandowski is not going to stay at Barca next season, as it seems to be the case. And if Vitor Roque doesn't start for Barca next season, question marks are going to arouse immediately.
Wow.
Immediately.
Sure.
So he has to go on loan to the right place.
But Alex, if I were to tell you that Brazil was going to be going to Copa America with a midfield built from an Aston Villa player, a West Ham player, and a Newcastle United player, you would probably say to me, first and foremost, just based on history, right? Well, that doesn't really sound like a Brazilian midfield. But then you replace it with the names here, and you've got Douglas Luiz, you've got Lucas Paqueta, and you've got Bruno Guimaraes, all right? We all know that all three of these players could be playing for quote unquote bigger clubs. But at the same time, it is really interesting to see that, right? Like if you look at that and you're a club guy, you're like, what? Where's Real Madrid? Well, it's all in the attack, because I'm not sure how Dorival is going to figure out how to get Endrick, Rodrigo, Vini Jr.,
he's going to put them forward.
Martinelli, Rafinha.
I mean, Martinelli and Rafinha, I think, will not start for Brazil.
No,
and this is the thing with Brazil. You get the feeling this Brazil team for Copa America, it's a new group with new leaders that have to grab the spots. And those new leaders are Danilo, Vinicius Jr., the best player in the world in form right now, Rodrigo Goes, Eder Militão, another Galactico, and Hendrik at 17. The future is now, and I've said it, Hendrik will be, when he's 22, Mbappe will be 30. That's the level. Hendrik can grab the world of football by the neck if he wants, okay? And that's the big question, Breton, too. Will Vinicius Jr. be the best player in Copa America?
Well, there's a certain Messi that's still going.
It's between Messi in Argentina and Vinicius Brazil. Do you think that, Breton?
Yeah, I mean, I think Uruguay does have a whole lot bigger shot and better shot than most people are giving them credit for. I'm going to say it's actually, across the board, 33% for me. I think Uruguay is just as much of a favorite as the other two.
So the top three favorites to Copa America, Brazil, Argentina,
Yep.
and Uruguay. And Loco Bielsa that called up someone that doesn't play professional football, a striker.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But he's also got a ridiculous amount of talent on that squad.
true.
And let's be honest, he's called up to the preliminary squad, right? They haven't announced anything just yet, which is interesting. And if you've got 3 extra roster spots, that Marcelo Bielsa is not really one that cares about that crap. He might bring him along anyway. Right? I don't know, sell some ads or something. But listen, I just think it's poetic. It's Luis Suarez is very likely his last Copa America. I'd imagine he's going, right? I don't think he's announced otherwise. He's obviously in good enough form, at least for Major League Soccer at the moment. and Uruguay haven't been this good since the last time they won in 2011, right? I think it was 2011, yeah. And I think it was in Argentina. I think it was Luis Suarez kicking the crud out of Paraguay, but they had beaten Messi and Argentina on penalties in the round of 16. So I really do feel that Brazil still has holes, for sure, particularly in their defense. And if anyone gets injured in that midfield, too. And I think Argentina is going to maybe come in, who knows, maybe a little bit too hot, a little too haughty. Coming off, maybe there will be a little bit of a World Cup hangover. Can't see him doing a two-peat when it comes to the Copa America, but we'll see. So I really feel like Uruguay has just as much of a shot as Argentina and Brazil right now. And with Marcelo Bielsa, I mean, I feel like he's set for a tournament like this. This ain't a qualifying campaign. This is a tournament. So
well said. The preparation
it'll be
of a
interesting.
Loco Bielsa must be next level. It must be something that people have to study. And anyone that has the privilege to see what he's prepping, come on, it's him and Sampaoli. No, not Sampaoli, Spalletti for Italy. That preparation must be so bold that that man is bold. Okay, so Uruguay. Mentioning names with the team that you're saying: Ronald Araújo, José Maria Jiménez, Manu Ugarte, Fede Valverde, the captain of this team, the engine, and Darwin Núñez. Will Darwin Núñez leave Liverpool? We see rumors that are suggesting Barca may be getting Darwin Núñez on loan. So Michael Edwards doesn't seem to like Darwin Núñez a lot with his statistics.
I've been hearing that about Xavi Simons too, which is I think more of an interesting intrigue because of obviously his history in the academy.
Quick question:
Barca.
Out Copa America, would you pick Xavi Simons to go to Barca ahead of Bernardo Silva?
I mean, come on, he fits the vibe. He fits the vibe of the club right now, which is young kids getting stuff done. Bernardo Silva is an octogenarian compared to them, but he is a world-class player. You're exactly right. As far as finances go, I know you would. I understand that too. I mean, I think he is a better player. But look, certainly, but Xavi Simons has got that je ne sais quoi, and at 21, I think he would fit in perfectly with that mold of guys, especially because he's probably played with some of them.
And in the Bernabeu, he really indeed went bold. And I asked you the question with Vinicius. If Vinicius Jr. wants to win the Ballon d'Or, it's not just being the best player at Real Madrid, it's being the best player for Brazil in Copa America. So if Brazil beats Argentina head-to-head, no doubts that Vini lifts the Ballon d'Or when the time comes. Ancelotti has said it. He thinks that should happen, and Jude Bellingham stated that he's the best player in the world. We mentioned Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, U.S. men's national team, and all this, Breton. Will Malik Tillman start in Copa America?
I don't think he will with Gio Reyna, but there are big positives, there are big negatives, Alex, and obviously Malik Tillman is a massive positive in that sense. 20 goal involvements and like 13 starts or something in the Eredivisie for PSV obviously was a big catalyst. Big depth piece for them as they went on to win the Eredivisie this season. But so much so that he convinced them that he is worth the investment. They bought him from Bayern, 12 million euros. Bayern has a buyback for 35 million euros. He is a guy, though, that has not. He's won over PSV's faithful, but he has not yet won over the U.S. Men's national team faithful in terms of his ability or his game-changing ability, because Gio Reyna comes on and obviously he does what he did against Mexico. And not that they have to fight each other for time per se, but Tillman will be on that bar. He will be seen in that level. So he is a massive positive. Christian Pulisic is a massive positive, being one of the best signings of the season in Serie A. He had 2 goals the other day. And he is, I think it's like 12 goals, 7 assists in his first season in Serie A. And they'll probably finish second place. But most importantly, Alex, he's been injury-free for the most part all season. And that's humongous. But listen, we also have negatives. And the biggest negative is Greg Berhalter. Exactly. And there's a limit to what we could do here. It's a matter of if he gives these guys the go ahead to just play, right?
I agree.
I don't think he's going to do that. So at some point we'll see. We'll see. Either Greg Berhalter grows into I don't know, an actual mold of a manager that people really like, or Greg Berhalter will falter, and Greg Berhalter will falter. It rhymes. Look at that. And we will move on, and we'll have 2 years to make it right. And obviously, I'd rather be proven wrong. I like continuity, but yeah, that's going to be interesting. But we don't know yet. The roster, I don't think, is going to be that insane. It's certainly not going to be like Brazil, and it's definitely not going to be like Jaime Lozano's El Tri. That Mexico roster, you want to talk bold? Okay, Brazil being bold, that's pretty. This is like super bold. This is uncharacteristic of El Tri. This is uncharacteristic of any manager, at least in the 20 plus years that I've been just fanboying over all world football. I have never seen something like this, aside from the infighting between players like Carlos Vela getting left out, other things of that nature. But they are leaving out Memo Ochoa. They're leaving out Chucky Lozano, Jesus Gallardo, Raul Jimenez, Henry Martin. They're getting rid of all of kind of these former managerial crutches previously. And that's insane. They're finally handing over the keys to Santiago Jimenez. 23 years old, 23 goals, 6 assists in the Eredivisie this season for Feyenoord. And this guy could barely even get off the bench in the Gold Cup, not the Gold Cup, in the the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yes.
And it's just pretty dang crazy
that
now, like, this is the moment that Jaime Lozano, after losing that final to the U.S., finally says, we're going to change this up and we are going to trust younger players. Santiago Jimenez at 23, Marcelo Flores at 20, former Arsenal product. You've got Jordan Carrillo, who I think is still pretty good, although I think his brother's better. And it's really intriguing to me to see Mexico change their strategy. So I don't know if they might crash and burn this time around, or they might be onto something. We'll see. Give the kids a chance.
Very, very interesting what Mexico is doing, for sure. They could surprise a lot of people. But one thing's for sure, the U.S. men's national team is capable of surprising a lot of people in Copa America. With Pulisic, with McKennie, with Serginho Dest, with Gio Reyna, with Ricardo Pepi, Yunus Musa, not Georgia Weah, Timothy Weah, Joe Scally.
Timothy.
A lot of these names are players that can come on and make a difference. And that's something that you wouldn't see maybe in other years with the U.S.
Well, I'll tell you what, Oliver
team.
Glasner, Oliver Glasner's short influence so far on Chris Richards is probably the largest development of something that the U.S. does need if they're going to compete regularly on the world stage. And that is, we need more depth at center back. We need more depth in defense. But Jedi Robinson, obviously Serginho Dest being injured is just heartbreaking.
And you mentioned
He's
depth.
out.
You mentioned depth. I see that the U.S. Kevin Sullivan signed the richest homegrown contract in MLS history.
Yes, sir.
$5 million will be paid to Philadelphia when he's 18, going to Man City. Could we see Kevin Sullivan go to the World Cup? in 2026 in 2 years?
Oh gosh, well that would take some real development there. I'll tell you what Jim Curtin has said. First off, the Union are losing at home and they're not looking that great. But Jim Curtin was not shy when he said the other day that Kevin Sullivan is closer to playing than most people realize. And I don't know if people know what that means. That is a 14-year-old that has just been signed by the Philadelphia Union. And he is saying he has until July 29th, not that there's a counter, but if he plays at any point before July 29th, he becomes the youngest player in not just soccer, sorry, people listening, football, not just, that, but also all American sports, all American professional sports. He becomes the youngest debutant. And that in and of itself is insane. But yeah, Manchester City scouts have said it. Other scouts have said it. Obviously, he's insanely advanced for his age. And we just need to remember that he is 14. And the best thing for him is he will be a Union member, Philadelphia Union member, from 14 till 18. He will develop at home. He will develop playing with his brother, Quinn. He will develop around the U.S. soccer system, not traveling 5,000 miles away, right? Mm-hmm. To and from, which I know hardens some people. But at 14 to 18, he will be the guy, and he will definitely play. But yes, it's the richest homegrown contract ever in MLS history, and I'm telling you right now, it's only the start with these academies. The academies have really only been churning products out, reliable products, for like the last 4 to 5 years. Ooh. Previous to that, it was setting the groundwork. And we are starting to see the fruits of the labor. And we'll see where it can go. But I am confident that Kevin Sullivan could snake onto that roster in 2026. It's just we haven't seen that in a very long time. And we know the last time somebody around 14 years old kind of came into our purview, at least when it comes to American soccer. It was Freddie Adu. And that, I mean, he provided us with some wonderful highlights. But obviously, he fizzled out, and I don't ever want to see that again.
But
I don't
not
want to see that
tournaments, not those tournament wins.
Yeah,
That's
no.
We were all perceived as the next Pele, but it wasn't the case. Let's see if Kevin Sullivan does what he's got to do. Okay, those are the expectations. If you're listening until now, episode 156, just like this video. It's a huge help for us here on YouTube, and look, thank you so much for going bold with us and listening to us on a weekly basis. Spotify listeners, okay? We will be fixing those issues, and we will be upgrading FC Wonder Kid as shows, as everything, because you guys deserve the best product. So you will be given the best product for sure when Spotify returns. And yes, thank you so much for all the support you guys have been giving us all these months and years. And thank you for going bold and listening until now.